call to order at 6:40. Oh, you know what I forgot to do, Martha, was print out the cheat sheet that you gave me. I need to do that.
Oh, yeah. Pat, I sent her the Robert's Rules cheat sheet that you sent me a while back.
Yeah. Very helpful.
Yeah. And Aiden, are you taking minutes this time? Okay.
Do we have to roll call in the beginning for who's here?
I think we should, but yeah, I think we should. I think in physical meetings, the minute taker probably just goes ahead and takes an attendance visually instead of it being like interactive. But I'm pretty sure that it's part of the governor's recommended practices for when we're in these Zoom meetings, that everything is just verbally announced as well. So do we want, I think we were having Aiden as the minute taker also do the roll call vote.
Okay, so roll call. Natalie Salee.
Here.
JC Herman.
Here.
Martha Gaines.
Present.
I have a helper here. Dr. Pat Effiam.
Present.
Debbie Braun. Maybe he is here. All right, and Aiden Nolan, I'm here.
I'm here, kind of.
Hi, Debbie.
Okay, hi, Debbie. I'm sorry to hear that you're not feeling great, but yay for your second shot.
But I'm glad you're vaccinated.
Yeah.
Yay, thank you. Yes.
And don't say another word during this meeting.
I'm not going to. Bye.
Hi, Debbie.
Okay, did everybody get a copy of the January 21st minutes? Get a chance to read the only changes that I had were it's brain effects, EFF instead of affects, brain affects. So I think I changed those in there already. So we need a motion to approve, is that correct? Unless someone has anything else that need changed? Martha, if you're chatting, you're on mute. I don't know if you're talking to us or Sarah.
I was trying to talk to you guys. I just wanted to make sure, I think Natalie, bless you, Natalie, sent those out like while we were all talking last time, right?
Yes.
Okay. Because of being in the meeting, I'm not confident I actually looked at them. Oh, and are those minutes, what's the format? Are those a Google document?
Yes. Yes, I think they were sent out as a PDF though, I believe.
Okay, and that would have been like February 4th. Okay, sorry, just a quick look. Does anybody have that email in front of them? I'm trying to find like what the subject would be. For some reason, REDI minutes gives me 50 different emails.
I can see if I can just send them to you again.
It's funny, they're not coming up on mine either.
Yeah, I'm sorry to delay things, but I didn't want to say like I approved those minutes if I couldn't remember actually having seen them. So I just want to make sure that I have them.
Did you find them? I can reshare it with you.
Yeah, if you don't mind, because I searched and I would have thought that they would have come in on the 4th, right? When we were having our meeting.
Martha, I'm sending them to you right now.
Okay.
Are you doing it?
I'm doing it.
Okay.
Do you all need them again?
No, I know I got them because I went through them. In my search, they're not coming up for some reason. Because I went back and I edited them.
Aiden, do you need them too?
Nope, I have them. I mean, I have the actual original link, I guess, so that counts because I can get onto them.
Just really quickly, while Martha's looking at that. So the way this works with Julie in the board meeting minute, or with the board meeting minutes, if there are any edits, like for example, JC, you mentioned it needs to be changed to brain FX instead of FX, FX. Iden would make those changes in the minutes, and then she would send me, in this case, because I'm going to be putting them on the website, just as a PDF, and you can just send it to me as approved minutes for January 21st. Make sense? Cool.
Okay, so the minutes were taken in the format of the agenda itself. Is that what I'm looking at?
That's how Iden did it. Yeah,
Okay.
that's fine.
I think when I saw that in my email, I glanced
All
at
right,
it.
should I do it differently?
No, I think
I
that's
muted
fine,
it, so.
No, I think it's fine, Iden. I think it's okay.
Yeah,
I
I'm
don't
just
think there's
saying,
any, like,
on the actual agenda
necessary
as we
format.
go.
No, it's fine.
no, it's a good idea actually, because then the skeleton of the agenda is already there for you. I just wanted to say, I'm pretty sure it's a lens, as in like a camera lens or a lens of an eyeglass. It's just LENS. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so it's just a spelling thing, but racial review equity lens. It's spelled with an E there.
That's probably my mistake. I'm a terrible speller.
Okay, so I have the minutes, and did somebody already move to approve these?
Not yet.
Okay, I'll move to approve the meeting minutes from February. You would think the date would be on here because
January 21st.
January 21st, 2021.
I'll second. Natalie.
Oh yeah, sorry. That was
Natalie will second.
okay. And then we would have any discussion on the minutes at this point, if there were to be any. Otherwise, we can move to vote by roll call vote. So does anybody want to discuss or add or say anything? We kind of already went over the stuff, right?
Do we have to approve February 4th minutes as well?
Yeah.
We do, but I think we're tabling that for now, right, JC?
Yeah, we'll get to that. We'll get to that in a second. That's the next thing on the agenda. Let's go through this one first.
Oh. Okay, we're doing, what was
Separate.
it?
Well, normally,
Right.
Iden, if we were approving multiple minutes at once, we could do one motion to approve all minutes.
Gotcha.
But those minutes from our most recent meeting are not ready yet. So that's why we're not approving them. But so yeah, we can just, unless anyone has anything additional, we can roll call the vote for approving the January 21st meeting minutes.
I have to do roll call. Okay, sorry. Natalie.
Yes.
Sorry. Yes. JC, sorry, it's all new to me. JC Herman,
Yes.
Martha Gaines,
Yes.
Pat Effiam.
No, I don't have a vote.
Oh, you don't have a vote. Okay, Debbie Braun.
Got a
Yeah.
thumbs up.
Thumbs up. Okay. And then Iden Nolan, yes. So I put those in there that yay, everybody, each of those people's names. Okay.
Yes. You're doing great.
Okay, so like Martha mentioned, the February 4th ones are still, Martha's still working on them. Her and I met earlier today to try to like fill in some gaps because it's, as Ida knows, it's hard to take notes and participate in the meeting at the same time. So those are going to get polished up and those will get sent out. So for now, I moved to table approving the minutes for the February 4th meeting.
Natalie will second that.
Okay.
And then Ida, whenever you're ready, we'll do roll call.
And we did talk about how we don't necessarily have to roll call vote on a tabling, but.
Oh, that's right. Okay. We did. We talked about that last time. All right. So we're just going to table February. Okay.
I was muted. I was going through your names. It just goes, you're muted.
We're terrible students. We're just ignoring you. Okay. So that takes us to the equity lens, which I am also going to move to table. I spoke with Pat earlier today. I think we've got some other work that we need to get done before we can get to the equity lens. That will make the equity lens make more sense later. Pat, I don't know if you want to add to that or.
No.
Okay, so I also moved to to table reviewing the equity lens.
I will second. Do I need a second? Natalie will second.
Okay, and then roll call. Natalie.
Yes.
Oh wait, we don't need to roll
We
call.
don't have to roll call the table.
Oh, the tablings. we
Some
do. Okay.
point.
For all tablings, I don't have to do. Okay.
At some point, I'm sure we'll have a better idea of what we're actually doing. Okay, so then that takes us to discussing the committee's role. Pat, I'm going to turn this over to you.
Okay. Can you, whoever has rights, can you give me screen sharing?
I gotcha.
Okay. Now, while I'm trying to screen share here, do you have any updates from Charlie from last week?
I haven't gotten anything from him yet. He said he was going to, give us something in writing. I haven't gotten anything from him yet. I do need to follow up with him to make sure that we get that.
Okay.
So it was just the conversation that we had in the board meeting.
Hold
Well,
on.
and I think we weren't totally clear, correct me if I'm wrong, those of you who are at the board meeting, on whether we were going to officially consult with Charlie outside of our board meeting, which of course means that the district is paying him hourly, or if we felt like we understood where he was at and we were good to go in terms of how we need to be compliant. So Natalie and JC, do you remember how we left it with Charlie?
I mean, I felt like I understood what he was saying. I don't know if my understanding is the same as everyone else's, but from what I understood, if JC as chair is just sending out agendas and like documents for the meetings to everybody, that's fine. If we get into like a back and forth through email, then that's not okay. But just to send documents like the agenda, and as long as we just reply to her directly, as opposed to replying all, that seemed to be a green light.
Okay. And I mean, when he talked about ministerial tasks, I mean, that's a term I know from like real estate. If you're doing like basic stuff as opposed to conducting business, then like I could even email everybody, I think. Like if I wanted to say, hey, there's a workshop that's free on equity that you all might want to attend, I could email the whole group because that's not me conducting business, and therefore it's not an OMA violation. One thing I'm curious about though, Natalie, is in theory, just like we see with the board, sometimes the commissioner has something that they want the rest of the board to see. And if it relates to business, but isn't necessarily actively carrying out business, it's still safest for them to send that to you and ask that it be sent out to the group. And if we're ever encountering that, I'm not quite sure who the go-to person is, if anyone right now, to be sending stuff like that out.
It's JC. Right, JC?
Okay.
Right, that was my understanding also.
Okay.
I do, which we can get to later on the agenda, I do have another suggestion that I think might be fix all these things all around that we can talk about a little bit later. But that was my understanding. As long as there was not a discussion that was happening amongst everybody, that was okay. It was also my understanding that his recommendation that ideally it be somebody that's not on the committee, because then we don't have to worry about those lines being blurred. But that's the same understanding that I walked away with, Natalie. So for now, I'll be taking that on, and then just don't reply all when I'm sending stuff out.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Pat.
Okay, so I wanted to, and I hadn't been at the last two meetings, but I did go back and review both of the meetings. And I really wanted to revisit why the committee was started to begin with. And I know we've been through this, but sometimes it's good to revisit that. And the whole purpose of this group is to make sure that that the work of equity, of paying attention to equity, is that we're constantly vigilant about that as an organization. And most importantly, that we're vigilant not just on a reactive level, but on a proactive level, which is why I wanted to sort of hold off on the equity lens so we could get through and understand. So what does that mean for us? And what should our responsibility be? On paper, if you look at us right now, I want you to think about what I'm going to, and let me stop sharing for a second. So on paper, if you look at how we're made up, and I'm not going to count myself in that group, we have Martha Gaines, white woman, Ridgeville board president. We have Debbie Braun, white woman, Ridgeville vice president. We have Natalie Salih, did I say that right? A white woman, program director. We have J.C. Herman, white woman, staff member. And then we have Elaine Siegel, white community member. And then we have Iden Nolan, white woman, community member. Now, obviously we can see white women. That's, can you believe that? And that's not going to be unexpected or uncommon. When we formed this group, the idea was we want to be as objective as possible. And we really wanted to, what we formed this group is to be community engagement sort of specialists. We want to make sure that, as you know, everybody can't have a seat at the table, right? We want to make sure that those who are seated at this table give access to everyone. So we always want to be thoughtful, much like when it was said that we were being racist, that we were marginalizing Black people. We went and found Black people and found a whole bunch of them. We went wherever we had to go to find them and bring their voices to our table. And that's what we're supposed to be doing. We need to make sure that we as a board are diverse enough that we are doing that. But I also want us to think about how strong our voices are, your voices are on this committee. And what then does that mean or say for someone who may or may not want to join the committee, right? And so I want us to really think through that carefully, because if I am a community member, I was looking at the last two meetings, I was that community member. I don't know the dynamics. I don't, just as a visitor, I have no idea that, yeah, JC is a staff member. She completely does not act in that role. That Natalie must, and I think we even put this in our REDI minute, our document. If you're going to, you have to have a senior staff person on the committee. That places value in terms of how the organization values equity within the organization. And Natalie should be that voice. It could be Brian, but it should certainly either be Natalie or Brian, but whichever one can make the commitment to it. And they're the sort of that staff reference, right? Who brings staff concerns, who can say, oh no, we couldn't do that as a staff, and are very much the voice that can tell us who's missing. And then the two board members, the whole point is they are board representation. I'm sorry, my allergies is killing me tonight. Representation, who are there to make sure that we understand the board, that this committee understands the board and the needs of the board, and that we're all in conversation with each other. So those were those three voices. The other voices are those who are voices representing the larger community, whatever, and that's going to be different people at different times. And so that piece becomes important. But it really is very important that this board is not even just seen, that this board is the body that engages the community. But we need to be the most objective body engaging the community that we can be. Does that help? So, making sure that we're hearing, JC, you're in the community. I don't know what you hear. I don't know what you see. I don't know the street you live on, what park you live by, what people are saying, skate park. I don't know who that group is. How do we find that group? Well, clearly, Brian, I think it's Brian, has done a great job of finding that skateboarding community and listening to their voices and making sure they got to the table and can tell us what equipment is important and why you shouldn't use this. And I mean, I learned so much just watching that because we went and found that voice. That's what we really want to pay attention to, is that missing voice. The equity lens, when we start using the equity lens, it'll help us because some of us aren't going to know when we get to certain projects which voice might be affected, right? And so that equity lens is going to help us ask that question and find out who those persons are, and then charges us to go find those people. And then calls us back to say, now we found them, we heard them, and based on what we heard, here's how we've incorporated what they said. Not at all, because it wasn't important, or it's important, but it's policy-wise, it's not possible, or. And so it's important for us then to make sure that this body is fully up and running and as representative as possible. Before we carry on. Questions?
I do have a question. I mean, I'm kind of wondering where we're at in relation to where we were previously regarding membership, because we had always talked about the set number of seats, so to speak, for community members, for board members, for staff. But we achieved the particular interest from certain individuals in terms of joining this committee that we achieved, and then obviously that was that. We didn't have 50 people applying to be on the committee, in other words. So we went with these great individuals who are part of the committee now, and I'm thankful for them, but I'm kind of trying to talk about the fact that we didn't fully fill the spots that we had for membership, and we chose, correct me if I'm wrong, we chose to go ahead with training with you, Dr. Effiam, with the people that we got, instead of actively seeking more first. And if I'm correct so far, I would add that I think that was not a mistake necessarily, because how long would we have tried, and who's to say that immediately reaching out in similar ways to the ways we already reached out would have yielded additional people? There's no way to know if that would have happened. But I mean, I get your point. This is, it's fine and well to have white women, acting in these positions, but it shouldn't just be white women. And so, like, where are we at? I mean, what in terms of trying to get additional people? Am I hearing you right that we're kind of trying to maybe pause before we move forward in any substantive ways until we have fleshed out the committee fully in terms of the spots? And no, okay,
no.
So.
No. So thank you for those very good questions. No, everything we have done has been right on target, and I would not change a thing. The first of all, committee makeups, this is par for the course. Boards, staff, this is par for the course, right? It's easy to say we want diversity. Diversity in the way that we think of it doesn't always show up at our tables, right? If you look at what we found out during the survey from with Ridgeville, right now this group represents a large part of who participates in Ridgeville, right? I mean, that part is what it is. I simply want to remind us that because we are who we are right now, we have to make sure that as we're thinking through things, that we're thinking more broadly and more inclusively. What I mean by that is if we're thinking about, let's just take the Northwestern grant. If we're thinking about the Northwestern grant, are we asking the right people, or are we just going to ask the people at the table? And I don't know the answer to that. I mean, so there is no, this is a right or wrong. It is just making sure that as we think through, when Natalie came to us and said, hey, how do we think equitably about holding spaces for people? Did we do our due diligence? Or did we, this committee, go, oh yeah, we think we should do it this way, and we ended it there. So we just want to be sure that we're reaching beyond ourselves. We want to be particularly sure that we're reaching beyond ourselves when we're making decisions. But no, we cannot stop. The other thing we also agreed, and Natalie and I talked about this the other day, is we're going to memorialize that training because, part of why we're so good, which is we really are a good team, is because we have had the time to not only go through training, but then to mull over this and to think through this and to work through this together, right? And so anybody we do want to bring on, we don't want to stop the process and start all over. We want to hand them the training, then pull them along.
I have a question about thinking about other people as we sort of have the committee that we have. It reminds me that outreach to the entire Ridgeville community and definitely to the people of color within Ridgeville is something that we've always talked about, an area where we can get better. And it doesn't even need to be that we're highlighting that we're not good enough, or that, it's like connecting with the community at a higher level in terms of individuals that we reach, making sure people know who we are, what we do, making sure they know what might interest them, and hopefully seeing more involvement, more registrations, et cetera, et cetera. That's always been something that we've talked about. Now here we are, further down the line, we have this committee. We hope to expand the committee. We hope to define the committee better. That's all already sort of on the agenda, so to speak. But look at this. We don't have, citizens showing up to the meeting to join us and talk about these things. So I feel like, it's a good time to resurrect the conversation about outreach and about how best to tap into our community. I don't expect that people are always going to take the time to come to meetings, or that there's going to be 50 to 100 people joining us, but seeing some participation from the community would be great. And it would also make me feel like we're engaging with them instead of just acting on their behalf in this disconnected way where we're not actually talking to people other than ourselves, but it's a challenge, right? Because we have to figure out how to get to those people. And even if and when we get to them, we can't give them cookies even because the meeting is virtual. You know what I mean? So it's like sometimes people talk about have food and drinks to help people come to things. We can't even do that. So, Pat, it's a question for you. It's also a question for all of us. We all need to start putting our heads together to come up with concrete ways that we can be connecting better with the community, letting them know that we're doing this work and asking them to come and join our hands, with it. And then I have to say that maybe Kyron is going to be a part of that, because that's the position that, that's part of the position, right, Natalie, the outreach component. So I don't know if you've started to talk to him about details and kind of get into that work yet.
I have. I can talk a little bit about that. Yeah, this is something that Pat and I also talked about the other day. That I'm still kind of grappling with, but am trying to breathe into. I'm so excited about this committee because I feel like it takes a lot of pressures off of my direct shoulders to somehow magically find people to participate in things, and that it's my sole responsibility to make magic happen in that way. And I'm excited that we have a committee that we all get to work together to kind of tackle that, and to think about it. And like you said, Martha, put our heads together and come up with some ideas. So first of all, I'm really thrilled to be supported by the REDI committee, take that on, because it is something that I think is important. As for Kyron, Kyron will certainly help us in the same way that I will as a staff member, right? So if we come up with some great ideas here as a committee, and some of those things are things for me to implement as a program director, and then things that I can task Kyron with to help me, then 100% that's what we're going to do together. But it's not, Kyron can't fix that problem. I can't fix that problem by myself. It's really going to have to be teamwork together. And I'm excited for opportunities that we're going to come up with together as a team. Some of which I'll be able to take on as program director, some of which Kyron will be able to help me with, and then some that we'll each be able to individually do, and then do together as a group as well.
And
of course,
the other
sorry,
part, we want to also be careful that we don't end up charging a person, right? I mean, community outreach is huge.
Mm-hmm.
And there's not a person that should be charged with it. And now I'm not defining Kyra's job, but I'm saying, for example, so much of how I built my community here was I went to the white churches and I sat there, and when they had installation, I would sit with their, go in and introduce myself and sit through the new pastoral installation. I'd get on their mailing list, right? And I began to build relationship with those communities. A big part for us is going to be able to do that once things start opening back up and allow for that. In the meantime, there certainly are opportunities where potentially we could be doing that. I was watching, there's a show, you all are gonna think I'm crazy, it's called Swamp People. But these people down in Alabama hunt alligators. And it's just fascinating to me. And I just watched that, and it's the most country show you could ever think of. And across the bottom, whatever channel it says WTTW recognizes Black History Month. Now, my God, how do I find Black History Month down there in hunting alligators, right? But so some things as simple as how are we? You're exactly right, Martha. How are we reaching out? The truth is, even when things open back up, people aren't going to be knocking our doors down. What are things that we can do to attract people's attention to say, oh, I wonder what that means. They're dropped by a cookie and a whatever. And so it's part of it is going to be for this group is learning that community outreach group. It's not going beyond what you know. It's where do you already exist? In classroom groups or with teachers or in the grocery store, wherever that might be, you see someone and we grab a hold of them. Come on, it's park. For you all who do parks, that's great. It's wonderful. It's fascinating, right? But for someone who doesn't do parks other than to go out there and, dust bugs off myself, you're a great group of people, but I wouldn't be joining you. So part of it is we have to understand we're not going to attract somebody just because we say, because of the color of their skin or something. What we have to do, though, is to make sure that we're attractive.
Well, something that you just said that I want to make sure I share, because I think it's a good idea, and I hadn't thought of it before, is that, especially in this pandemic, it's really hard to connect with people in a physical sense, period. When you said classes, it made me think of, I was telling JC earlier that I've been doing these classes through the Norris Center at Northwestern. It's their student center, physically the Norris Center, but they also have these things called mini courses, and they just decided to do them for free during the pandemic. So all you have to do is register, and it is somewhat of a lottery, and then you get into whichever classes you get into, and there's a small materials fee. But anyway, I got into 4 classes, and I've been doing them through Zoom. And in the ceramics class, the teacher at the end of our course, because it was 4 weeks long, she says, I have some announcements. And I was like, oh, this is so funny. I feel like I'm in a real classroom. The teacher's got announcements. And she was saying things like, you have to return your materials that were sort of like on a rental basis. You have to return your materials by your tools by the end of this week. You also have to turn in your clay pieces that you've made because they're going to get fired in the kiln, and the deadline is blah, blah, blah. And, Josh, who's in charge of the program, wants me to make sure I get all this information out. And it just remembering that when you said classes, I wonder if tapping into our existing participation, our existing registrants or whatever, in terms of like asking our instructors. So this is kind of a question for you, Natalie, but it's also a question more broadly to the group. Like, does that sound like a good idea, that we would actually sort of give a little bit of a blurb to the instructors who do Zooms for adults, obviously, because I don't really think we would announce the REDI committee to classes with kids in them, but something like we just, the Ridgeville Park District wanted me to let you guys know that they have a committee called the REDI committee that's doing, whatever it is that we say, just as a way to get the word out there in case anyone hasn't heard. And I'm sure there are people who haven't heard, but it would also hopefully maybe lead to people, reaching back out to us. Whatever. It's an idea I had.
Alderman Nguyen talked about, she held I guess there's a new candy place in town, Renoir or something. And the owner makes these phenomenal chocolates. And what they invited everyone to was this chocolate party. So you stop by the store between these hours, you picked up your little bag of stuff.
Yep,
and
Noir de Ben.
like at 9 o'clock, yes, like at 9 o'clock, they were all in their pajamas. And then the chef came on, and as they tasted these chocolates, she walked them through what they were tasting, how they were made. And from what I hear, it was like the best, most fun thing. And so you could, the REDI committee could, for all, what if we just want to host what if we just want to host some of our presenters, right? And say, we want you to know about our equity committee, and you can stop by and on the porch and pick up a cookie, and then join us at 8 o'clock at night and share a moment of, about what we're doing with racial equity, and make it sound a little more interesting. But there are a ton of ways to get this out there. I don't want, in any way, I don't want you all to be discouraged, because we start out, and I told you from the beginning, this is journey work. This is lifetime journey work. And it's going to take us a lifetime, and it's going to be slow, and that's just the way that it is. And we've learned so much along the way. We just want to continue to build that, right? And like I said, more than anything, we just want to continue to build thinking in our circles. Are we talking about these things? How do we talk about them in our circles? What do we do? That's it.
What are your thoughts on putting a flyer together? So Kyron, after the meeting that he attended and then the board meeting this last week, he texted me some ideas about some like places to go for outreach in terms of like, reaching out to some pastors, his barbershop he mentioned, but he was asking about a flyer too. And we have an instructor who teaches a line dance class at the park, and she's African-American, and she is kind of new to social media and was tagging Ridgeville Park District a lot, and kind of caught wind of some of the things that happened on social media last year. And so she called me right away and was like, "What is this? I'm going to tell everybody this is crazy." And it's like, "Oh, bless you. Thank you." But she was like, "I have a lot of ideas, and like, I have a lot of ideas on places I could reach out to my community within the Ridgeville District community." And, she made a point to me that like a lot of our stuff is available online, but a lot of the people that she's friends with and her family within the community are not online.
Right.
They don't have smartphones, and they're not, they're not on the computer all the time, like I am, for example. So she was asking me for a flyer just to promote classes as well. And so, I'm working on some of that stuff with her too. But anyway, just between, some of her thoughts and Kyron's thoughts, and, I feel like it's probably important that we put together something that's not digital. Yeah. that we could post. We've got a new display board at Elks Park that's brand new that that we can post things into, as well as the other ones around town, or around the parks. But what do you think about that? Is that something that you all think is a good idea?
I think it's fabulous, and I think there are a ton of groups. I told you all about the Foster Senior Club. Mm-hmm. You're talking about 80 people who meet every Wednesday and have done so for the last 85 years, I think it is. and for any one of us to go and say, we just want to come and see what you do.
Mhm.
And sit in on their Zoom meeting, and they're to another group. They get lunch delivered to them, and they sit and eat their lunch, and then they have a meeting, and they have a whole set agenda, and they sing, and
Are they meeting? Are they meeting in the pandemic too, Pat?
yes, they have not stopped. They're meeting by Zoom. Now they're all, really old. I mean, they have the 100+ club. I think there's like 12 of them. But so a lot of them don't use media. It took them a year to get on Zoom, but they're on. The library set it up, went to their homes and set them up on Zoom. And so, yes, they're meeting. There's the Evanston clergy group representing 17 churches right here in Evanston. For you all to stop by for a 10-minute on the agenda. We're Ridgeville Park District, and many of you are part of us. And here's what we are, and here's what we do. And, we'd love for you all to participate. So that's why I said for us as a group, as a collective whole, I know they're harder to find, but there's the Latino, I think it's the Latino Mommies group or something like that. So there's a ton of ways to do that. We could even do some offerings. And like I said, Black History Month, what if we did some activity? And that's how they get introduced to the work that we're doing. So yes, there's a ton of ways and to do this. And like I said, but what we don't want to do is start taking on a whole bunch of tasks so that we become overwhelmed with our already over busy lives, right? The big question is going to become, which is why I want to talk a little bit about the charter, is what are we asking them to? Not everybody's going to be a good fit for the REDI committee. We don't have enough room on the REDI committee if everyone who wanted to come on would want to come on anyway. But we're asking them to become ambassadors. We're asking them to become participants, right? We're asking them to become partners so that when we do hunt down people, then they know what we're asking them for.
I have a question for you, Pat.
Okay.
You told us about that group that meets at the Foster Center a long time ago.
Yes.
When we were talking in the vestibule at Ridgeville way back when.
Way back when.
And I remember, it's one of those things where, like, now that we're in a pandemic, I'm just kicking myself that I didn't say, yes, Pat, can we go with you next Wednesday? Let's do it, or whatever, because now so much time has passed and it's, not in person, and we'll get there again someday. But it makes me think, if we were to show up at a get together like that, it makes me realize I don't really know what to say. I don't know how to say, like, why I'm interested in them without coming off in this horrible way of like a white person who's like, I see that you're a bunch of Black people who get together and I would like to know more about you, or I want to be friends, or whatever it is, it's just sort of like, I'm trying to tap into, like, let's flesh that out. What would I say when I got there? So I mean, I hate to lean on you too much and ask you to tell me how to talk to people, and it's partly that my social skills are just out the window now that we're in this pandemic this long, but it is sort of a broader conversation, I think, that I would love to have, partly now or
very
later.
Broad conversation, and one that I think that as soon as we get our charter done, that one that we should very much have, and one I'm very much having. One of you is going to smile because I had one of it with you this week already, but I'm very much having with lots and lots of my white clients is about white empowerment, is to be able to say, I am here because that's what I want to know. And Ann Rainey, as you all know, is running for alderman, and she's gotten herself into a pickle with the whole Devon Reed situation. And she was invited by the Foster Senior Club last week. And so she called and she said, what do I say? And I said, let me put Dolores Holmes, who's in charge of it, and she'll tell you what to say. And she said, you can start by telling me you're not a racist. And she goes, I can't say that. And she said, why not? And so, Ann made her report, said what she had to say. And then someone said, well, why do you think Devon Reed is scary? And she said, well, first of all, it was a bad choice of words. It's just a bad choice of words. I've been saying it about Trump the whole time, but I'll tell you what I meant by it. He's scary because I've worked with him for 4 years as a city clerk. And here's some of the things I've personally witnessed. the way he conducts business is scary. It took the whole race issue for them off the table. And so part of it, Natalie, is learning up and showing and being able to say, Martha is learning to say, as I got here, Black and white churches, it is the most divided place, and for good reason. And I would go over and I'd say, hey, I'm a Black pastor and I'm interested in trying to do some things with your white congregation. But I know my Black people are going to have a hard time. So can we plan an event that would make it comfortable for everybody? So a lot of it is, hey, I'm Ridgeville Park. I'm with Ridgeville Parks. And, first of all, I didn't even know who you all were, that you existed. And I realize you not only do you exist, but you live in our ward. You certainly have kids and grandkids and some of your great grandkids in our park district. And we do a lot of stuff and we'd like to do more. So we'd like to hear from you, but we'd love for you to hear from us. So for us, you will find the Black community in particular, Latinos a little different, but we know what you want already. We already know what you want. So just feel comfortable in that. Just feel perfectly comfortable being who you are and saying, hey, I brought some cookies and milk because I heard Black people like cookies. That'll get a laugh and people, they'll love that, and you move on and they're like, okay, these people are real. So, but I'd be happy also to go with you or to have you come with me to a couple of the things that I do so you can see what I do and how I do it. But it's a great question, but it's just about engaging people. And right now, white people feel so disempowered because you all are getting smacked every which way but loose. And anything you say you're a racist, your internal voice tells you you're a racist, you tell each other you're racist, you tell each other, of course, I have white privilege. And I said, I need white people right now in this season to get past that. While it's all true, I mean, your guilt feelings are there and you have to work through that. That's for a therapist. I need you to be a part of the world that I live in right now. And that's the world. I very much need your voices. And when I say Black people need white voices. Just like white people need, we need your voices. And when you all stand back and withhold, then you're holding up the fight. And so you have to work through those issues. But no, Martha, I would love to have you come and share. I mean, and some of it you just mess up. I had a group come to meet with our Black clergy. Well, you talk about pecking order in the Black church. And I got here, I was probably here 2 years when there was some event. And somebody from the city came over and said, hey, would you pray for us at this event? And I said, have you talked to the senior pastors? And they're like, well, who are they? I said, well, there's Clifford Wilson. There's this one. I can't step out in front of them. So, very hierarchical, right? And so they came into the meeting. Don't, if you come to my Black church, if you see me out somewhere and I'm Black, right? Then what I'm gonna say to you is this: don't ever call me Pat. That's just the way it is in Black church. I am Reverend FM in Black church. So you can call me Pat wherever you want. But if you're standing there, my husband in my church, you will never hear my husband openly call me Pat. When he calls me Pat, it's because I'm now in my wife role. Right? But you learn those things as you go along. And that's part of it. That's the joy I find of talking with people is I learn so much. Oh my God, I learned so much about people.
Pat, I would love to go.
Okay.
I would love to go with you because I can talk to people all day about classes and programs and things they want to do. What kind of concerts they want. I'll listen all day.
Well, I'll sign you all up for a couple of things, and then whoever can come along on that particular Zoom, just join in. And if you want to sit in for a minute, that's fine. If you want to stay the whole time, that's fine. Just want to see the inner workings, that's fine.
That'd be great.
Okay.
I do have some social anxiety, so I would like to be introduced by or like come with you.
Can I throw another idea out there also about the Foster Senior Club?
Yes.
Pat, do you have any sense of, and I don't know how you would, have complete data on this or anything, but you might have some sense, maybe none, about how many people in the Foster Senior Club live in Ridgeville versus.
I don't.
You don't? Okay.
None.
What do we feel? What do we feel as a committee when it comes to trying to connect with people of color, Black people in Ridgeville versus people of color and Black people in Evanston more broadly? You know, because sometimes I feel like there's, and fairly so, you know, an emphasis on the Ridgeville community when it comes to doing things as Ridgeville, for Ridgeville, with Ridgeville. But, you know, it's always been sort of a made up um, uh, line drawn, and it really is a line. There are boundaries, right? And if you're a Ridgeville resident, you pay less. Some of those things actually are real, like, but I'm just trying to think, you know, the Foster Senior Club has come up a number of times. I think a number of us like authentically have wanted to go and meet them and connect with them this whole time. You know, is it okay, and does it make sense on the basis of sort of connecting with an existing community of people that we want to connect with more broadly, even if they're not in Ridgeville? You know, like,
that's what I said to Ann Rainey, because she said, how many of those people at the Foster Senior Club are even live in the 8th Ward?
yeah,
I said, I have no clue, but I can tell you is this. There's one Black community in Evanston. And my aunt may not live in Ridgeville, but I might, and my cousin's sister might, and the lady I sit next to in church might. And so I think that when you're talking about a smaller subset like that, you have to engage the whole. Because there may not be anybody at all, right? But as we said, but that doesn't mean they can't participate.
right.
And it can't mean that, you know, they don't even know. Like I said, you know, half of them, they couldn't tell you what anything outside the 5th Ward was, because most of them live in the 5th Ward. But so I think it's, like I said, you know, the church I go to, we represent every single ward. And so therefore that means we're definitely represented. Ridgeville's in there as well.
Yeah, I mean, to me, I'm sort of feeling like there's definitely this sense that I have that's like, you know, in terms of understanding lived experiences of people who are different than me, even in the context of doing that work within Ridgeville, it's like those voices are not any less valid in that realm of what we're trying to understand better, and who we're trying to get to know, and who we're trying to attract, and all of that. Those voices are not any less valuable because they don't live in Ridgeville. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I was just kind of trying to get clear on that a little bit, because I know in many ways we do prioritize our community. We do want to connect with the people in our community. And, you know, maybe since the Foster Senior Club is so well established and has been around for a long time and has a lot of members, you know, maybe that is the go-to place, even if you live in Ridgeville, because there isn't a place that's an analog for that, like in this kind of part of town or whatever. But we've also heard, whether this is, you know, widely valid or not, we've also heard the idea that, you know, people who live in Ridgeville or close to Ridgeville may choose to send their kids or send themselves to the foster center, you know, and other places instead of Ridgeville, if there's a perception problem that Ridgeville is not, you know, a welcoming place or whatever. I forget all of the terms that were used, you know, once upon a time there, but just still trying to brainstorm on like how to connect with the.
Yeah, and I think that that's where some of the listening happens at our church right now, because we aren't able to be in the building. We added into our service a space that says, "How is it with your soul?" And everybody turns on their mics, and you know, what you really hear are what people need. Some people just want to tell you, well, it's my grandfather's birthday yesterday, and his great-great-grandfather was back in the Civil War, and then other people want to give you a scripture, but then other people talk about a soup they made. It really is a free-for-all, but you get to hear a lot and know a lot about a community just by listening. And we have one woman says, this is why I come to your church now, is because I just love listening to when you ask, how is it with your soul? Natalie and I were talking the other day. in the Fifth Ward to get anything out to the membership, we have to use the clergy. So we have a very strong clergy group because our people are, for the most part, very broadly, and I'm talking about even my age, are not using technology. Didn't even know that that's how you went online to register to get your vaccine. And Natalie said, well, can we volunteer? I'd be willing to make some phone calls for people to get them on a list. But here's, JC, my recommendation, because I really would like to have the charter signed off on no later than next meeting. Can we send that out to everybody and ask for feedback by next week? And then shoot it all. Can it come back to me? Yeah, because you're only going to respond to me. Shoot all back to me. I'll incorporate all your comments and things, and then for the next meeting, we should be ready to vote on it.
Yeah, that sounds great. Hey, Pat, speaking of sending us things, I think we talked about previously some sort of like tangible, specific racial equity lens that was in document form that you were going to be giving
Yes.
to us. So if that could get sent as well, because I think it's always great for us to be able to look at it before a meeting and then, discuss further. Even if we're not planning on like finalizing that as sort of in an agenda sense, I think getting it sooner rather than later would be really helpful. And then darn it, what else was I going to ask you? Oh, the document you had up when you were sharing your screen today, and that was sort of details about, the committee, sort of what we're about, and you started to talk about proactive versus reactive.
Yes.
I don't know if we're going to be getting back to that this meeting or if that's something we'll touch on later, but if it's okay with you, I don't know if it is, but if we could sort of have a copy of that to look at.
That's exactly what I'm sending you.
Oh, okay. So
great.
Those
are the two pieces that I'm sending you together.
Okay.
Yes. And so that will form the charter that I want us to get signed off on again. So we're very clear about what we're doing. And the racial equity lens, I would much, JC and I talked about it a little bit. In listening at the last two meetings about it, there seems to be a real lack of clarity about what that is. So what my proposal is that before the next meeting, I will send it out, but only 24 hours before. And I only want you all to look at it from the perspective of, we're going to be discussing this, because this is less of a piece that can be manipulated and questions changed and shaped, because one question leads to another question, which leads to another question that fits for your community. And so I don't want people to spend like hours pondering and going, well, I'd like if we went, it really needs to be a pretty succinct, tight document. So I would like you to spend the time on the charter, and especially you wordsmithing people and all that. And then before the next meeting, when we post the next agenda, we'll put up the racial equity lens, but with less of an eye for how I might change this and more, will this work for our community? Are you all comfortable with that?
I have a quick question, kind of off topic. I don't know. I'm just realizing Iden wasn't feeling well. She left.
Yes.
And we don't have a quorum anymore. Does that matter this far into the meeting?
We're not making any decisions.
Right. We're not voting on anything. We're not. Okay.
That's actually a good question though, because I don't know if a quorum has to be maintained throughout the whole meeting or if it just has to be achieved at the beginning, because somebody could always have to leave a meeting.
I know that the quorum has to be maintained as long as there's going to be voting business.
We can still meet and discuss without a quorum. We just can't decide anything.
Right. We're still in a public meeting, so we can discuss, but we can't vote on anything.
Right.
Okay. I just want to make sure.
I'm asking you as chair, do I have permission to send out a piece of paper so that we don't need to vote on that? My recommendation for the next two meetings is here's how we proceed. Because I think procedurally getting those two pieces locked down and in place gives us sort of what we need to now continue to move forward.
Thanks, Pat.
I think that's a great.
And I'm squirmy because I've been in my third hard chair meeting this afternoon. I'm squirming all over the place, so I apologize.
No.
I think we, where are we at in the agenda? I mean, I think
That's what I was about to say. We've got the responses from Charles. And then I think we essentially discussed the potential remedies with one exception, I think, to what Charles said. Right. So essentially, I mean, you all were at the meeting.
one thing about Charles's responses is that, you know, when it comes to the OMA, and we've heard this a number of times, at least one time that pertained to us directly, which is when we were talking about, are we even subject to the OMA at all, yes or no, and why? You know, sometimes he's framing things in the context of like, you know, is anyone going to have a problem with this? Probably not. And it's sort of like, okay, you know, some of us feel like we're trying to get at the center of what's okay and what's not is anyone going to take issue with us for this. But another like sort of lack of clarity from where I sit is that sometimes he's saying, well, this would be best, but you could probably do this too. And in the realm of that kind of answer to our questions, I felt like he said, which we've already kind of gone over, that a community member sending those things out instead of a committee member would be ideal, or even a staff member who's not also on the committee. And JC, I don't know if it's okay with you that I bring this up now, but you and I spoke earlier, and one of the things that we talked about is the idea that maybe a way to engage the community and find someone to serve this purpose of, you know, doing the communication in a way that doesn't violate OMA and in no way, shape, or form, you know, could be construed as violating OMA. That might sort of, I hate to use this phrase, kill two birds with one stone, but, you know, like achieve two things at once.
I think so. So that's my recommendation, Natalie and Debbie. I think that we should find a community member to take on the responsibility of manning the emails and taking notes for the meeting. So we would have, you know, a community member who's not a part of the committee attend our meetings and essentially kind of keep tabs on us and make sure that we're following through with the things that we're supposed to. Martha,
sort of like anything administrative that somebody would be in the position of handling that. You know, when I took minutes last meeting, I really got a taste of how hard it is to take good minutes and participate at the same time. Yeah. And then with this concern of needing somebody to be able to send out, you know, emails relating to work that we do in the committee, and have that person be as distant from the committee itself as possible, it just started to make sense that we might actually ask somebody to either volunteer or get paid a small stipend or whatever to do that kind of work for the committee. And also, Natalie, that ties into the idea of you possibly not being on the committee, which is not my preference, given that you know, do still want to be on the committee, because I think all of us agree that we want you on the committee. You know, we don't want you to feel like you have to step down just so that we have a more comfortable way of getting around or complying with the OMA, you know?
Yeah. And I think Pat's point that you need a senior staff member on the committee, you know, I don't know that Brian would be able to commit to that right now. So you're stuck with me. I will say for a position like that, as corporate secretary, I get paid for the board, and as minute taker, so does Julie. So neither of those positions within the board structure are volunteer. So I don't know how we figure that out in terms of budget to like, I mean, I'm sure it's manageable because we're not looking at, you know, tons and tons of money, and we're toward the end of our fiscal year anyway. So I think that could probably be worked out from the REDI budget or from the equity budget. That's something that needs to be brought up to Brian, and I would imagine the board as well. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Should I have that as a question in my board report for next month?
Yeah.
Yeah. And, you know, Julie came to mind. I don't know if she would be interested in doing additional minutes, but she does such a great job for us on the board. And so, you know, if you think that's a good idea to ask her, we could always see if she'd be interested in that, you know, once
I mean,
we
I would,
budgeted.
yeah, and we'll probably need to talk about that as a quorum at the next meeting, but just for the sake of discussion, Julie's terrific, and she does a really great job. You know, she might be willing to do it if we just increase the stipend that she gets currently. So, yeah.
I have a question for Pat too.
Yeah.
Since you have more of a understanding of how things have gone at the city level, how are minutes normally handled for committees at the city level, and for that matter, you know, communication as well with the committees? You know, who generally handles those kinds of tasks?
They generally have a staff person.
Okay.
A committee there is assigned a staff person. That person is responsible for the minutes.
Okay. So existing staff, obviously not somebody who's hired just for that, but they have staff to deal with that.
That's correct.
Okay. And Natalie, if need be, as we've talked about before, as a possibility, you know, I never want to just like pile something onto somebody else's plate if I don't understand what all they're dealing with and how much of their time is already consumed with their tasks. But Abigail might be, you know, an option for us too, if and when we kind of need somebody to do those jobs.
That's more of a Brian question because he's
Okay.
really her boss. So.
Okay.
Okay. I mean, I think the only other things on the agenda were, you know, like the answers to Charles. I mean, I know you all were at the meeting, but essentially, you know, the idea that since there's 8 positions on the committee, that 5 is what constitutes a quorum, because we have to go by the positions available, not necessarily how many are filled. And then in the meantime, until we figure out this piece of like the managerial stuff and finding a better solution, I will be manning all that stuff. Just don't reply all. And I think after that, it says, you know, discuss potential remedies to the aforementioned concerns. I think we covered all that already. I think, you know, having the charter, finding, you know, someone to take notes, I think is going to remedy this. And then, you know, getting some more people on the committee. I really liked, Pat, I really liked your suggestions for like pulling people together.
Yeah.
I don't know, I'm a big foodie. I'm obsessed with food. So I always think that works out well. Yeah, you know, in terms of trying to pull more people in, I've got a few ideas that I can, you know, throw towards Natalie and Kyron later. Is there anything else? Do we do like one last, anything else anybody wants to say before we adjourn?
Well, I'm wary of carrying on too much without, you know, our quorum and with a number of people not here. But I did want to just ask real quick where we landed on anything that's kind of additional to the website or to communications of any kind regarding Black History Month, because we are already at the 18th, you know. And so I just kind of wanted a refresher, like maybe from you, Natalie, as to kind of what we've included and if there's anything that we need to finalize that we were going to be adding.
Poor Natalie got bombarded by me.
Yeah, JC sent me some fun stuff. I put on our equity page, I put up some links to some events and different things going on in Evanston that people could participate in. And then some additional articles and links to just Black history in general, just for the page. That's one of the things that Kyron and I are trying to organize is some content development for posts, like for a consistent social media posting schedule and updates for the equity website. He's had some personal things going on, so he's not been able to really meet with me to continue discussing that. But that's the goal. And something else that we are trying to iron out right now is a book discussion of Ibram X. Kendi's Stamped from the Beginning. There's 5 chapters in it. We're talking about doing a book discussion, 1 chapter every 2 weeks. So it would be kind of a 10-week book club. It would be free and open to anybody that was interested, and kind of centering this book club around like anti-racism themes. So as opposed to the book club Party of One that I've been in for the past 2 years, this would be just kind of a book selection by book selection basis. I really enjoyed Ibram X. Kendi, what I've read of his, and this book I have not read, and Kyron had recommended. So we're ironing out details on that. As soon as I have that stuff figured out, I'll put it on the agenda so that I can let everybody know about it here at the meeting and also at the board meeting. But that's it.
Awesome. Thank you. I haven't read it, but I've listened to readings, excerpts from it. The Evanston Public Library actually just did a 4-part series that concluded on Tuesday night, I think it was, with various anti-racism readings done by some of the librarians and other people in the community. And it was so great. Some of the books were like books you would read to kids. And then Stamped from the Beginning and other books were also, obviously more for adult or older teenagers and stuff like that. And it was very, very interesting to hear some of the historical stuff I did not know. I'm going to get this wrong, so maybe I shouldn't try to say it. Something about how slavery, an early attempt at justifying slavery, used the Bible.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe you can help me out with this. It was like the Africans were cursed or something, and so slavery was an attempt to like free their souls.
Oh, yes.
I did not know about that.
Oh, yeah. I could do a whole book on that.
Oh, God.
Yeah, it was crazy, and I found myself like horrified, but feeling like I've got to go read that book. I need to find out what's the rest of.
Now you can.
Yeah, count me in. I'll be there.
That would be excellent. So,
one last question for you, Natalie, is regarding those things that you said you added to the website or the web page, our equity page of the website. How, if at all, are we like publicizing when things get added, or is it just sort of that it'll be happenstance who happens to visit and see the new things that get put on there?
Right now it's happenstance.
Okay.
But that's again part of what I'm trying to coordinate with Kyron.
Okay, cool.
So there will be updates to the website that will correspond with a Facebook post. So the link to it will be attached to the post, so it will draw attention to the site. We're working on it.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Thank you.
JC, yeah, thank you. JC sends me stuff all the time.
I just
if you guys run across anything that you think would be a good Facebook post or belongs on our equity page, just like copy and email me. Like just copy the stuff and send it my way. And that's great. I mean, I come across content on my own from time to time, but again, not enough. So if you guys read anything or see any kind of events going on, if anything, pops up on social media and your own personal Facebook pages that you're like, this would be great for people to know, just send it my way and I can create something for it.
I just sent you, Natalie, I think you and I have talked about this before, but Martha, I think you might be interested. Have you heard of the 1619 podcast?
I've heard of it, but I haven't listened to it.
I listened, I think it was the first 4 episodes that I listened to. Not only is the information really important, I think, but they're also just really well done. I mean, really, really well done. But so Natalie, I just sent that to you too, because I think that's a good thing to post for people to have access to. I just realized there's a bunch of new episodes I haven't listened to yet.
I'm not really big into podcasts, period. How do you access it? Could I get it on Spotify, or like, how do you actually get the podcast itself?
I mean, I get it through my podcast app on my phone,
okay,
but I don't use Spotify. I'm a very low tech person.
Stitcher's a good app, Martha. Do you have an iPhone?
No, I have Android.
Okay, so great. So you might have Google Podcasts on your phone, which is what I use.
Okay.
If you don't, Stitcher is a great platform.
Okay.
Everything's usually there.
I will look and see if I have that. And it's probably in the App Store if I don't have it on there already, right?
Yes.
Okay.
I think if I'm not mistaken, I think it might be a New York Times. So they might have it on their website too.
Okay. I'll look it up. The 1619 podcast.
1619. It's 1619 was the year that the first ships hit the North American continent.
Yeah.
JC, that's great. I'll put a whole section up there about podcasts because my friend Lucy also just sent me one from Fresh Air called "What Racism Costs Everyone." I haven't listened to it yet, but obviously that's on topic for us. So
Yes, yeah, I want to hear that too. Okay. Is there anything else before I release this all for the evening? My kids are awake and they're not supposed to be.
We haven't had dinner yet in my house.
My kids start school at 8:00 in the morning.
Oh, right. Because King Lab is an hour earlier, right? Yeah.
what
That's
time do they start?
8.
Oh no.
You know.
Oh no. That's how I feel.
I like my kids were never those kids that were like up at 5:00 in the morning, right? They're the ones that they're like my husband and I are like, why are the kids still sleeping? We're awake now. I'm not complaining. This is a very happy, joyous part of my life. All right. Well, I guess on that note, I move to adjourn.
I will second Martha.
Yep.
And did somebody take some of those final notes of the rest of it after Aiden left, or
I've got almost all of it. There's a few things I'm gonna have to fill in for sure, but I've got all the important stuff.
okay?
Did
Does somebody want a roll call adjournment?
Yes. All right, Natalie.
Yes.
Martha.
Yes.
And Pat, you don't get to vote on adjourning, do you?
Yeah.
Okay. And I vote to adjourn also. I think Debbie left already. And Ivan left. Okay. All right, fantastic.
All right. Have a good rest of your night, guys.
Bye.